8 mice, perfect food, perfect water, perfect temperature, no enemies, no disease, no danger of any kind, a literal paradise. 5 years later, every single one of them was dead. And here is the part that should keep you up at night. Not a single mouse died from anything a doctor could have found. No infection, no starvation, no injury. They simply stopped wanting to live. This is the story of Universe 25, the most unsettling social experiment ever conducted. And the reason its results may be less about mice than you think. It started with a question that one man could not let go of. What happens to a society when life becomes too easy? Most scientists spend their careers trying to eliminate suffering. John Calhoun spent his trying to understand what suffering was actually for. He was an ethologist, a scientist who studies animal behavior, and for over 2 decades, the same obsession drove every experiment he ran. He wanted to know what happens when you take away every hardship an animal has ever faced. When you remove hunger, remove predators, remove disease, remove competition for resources. When you hand a living creature everything it could ever need and ask for nothing in return. He had been chasing that answer since the late 1940s. He built enclosures in forests. He built them in barns. He built them in laboratory rooms, one after another, 24 of them across 2 decades. Each one was a slightly different version of the same idea. A world without scarcity, without danger, without struggle. Rats, mice, unlimited food, unlimited water, safe temperature, clean bedding, no escape. And in every single one of those 24 experiments, he watched the same thing happen. The population would explode, then violence would spike, then reproduction would twist into something unrecognizable. Then it would collapse into total apathy, and then the colony would die. 24 times. The same pattern, the same ending. The 25th was supposed to be the clean one, the perfect one. The experiment so carefully designed that nobody could argue with what it showed. He built it inside a federal research facility in Maryland. A 9-foot square enclosure with apartment units stacked along every wall, connected by mesh tunnels running floor to ceiling. He called them walk-up apartments. Each apartment was connected to food hoppers that never emptied and water bottles that never ran dry. He ran the calculations. The space could comfortably support around 3,800 mice. It would never come close to that number. On the first day, he placed 8 mice inside, 4 males, 4 females. The healthiest specimens from the National Institutes of Health breeding colony. He shut the lid, and he waited. For the first 104 days, almost nothing happened. The mice explored. They mapped the space. They figured out the tunnels, the apartments, the feeders. They established a basic social geography. Who slept where, who ate where, who was dominant over whom. It was slow and quiet and completely normal. Then the first litters arrived, and the population began to double every 55 days. By day 315, more than 600 mice were living inside Universe 25. They climbed over each other on the ramps. They slept in stacked piles. They jostled for nesting space at the tops of the apartment units. The enclosure was loud and crowded and alive. And this was the exact moment everything began to fall apart. In a natural mouse colony, when population grows beyond what the territory can support, the answer is simple. The surplus mice leave. They find new ground. They move on and start over somewhere else. There is always somewhere else. Inside Universe 25, there was no somewhere else. The young males, the ones who would normally have emigrated, found new territory, established themselves somewhere new, had nowhere to go. Every role in the social structure was already filled, every apartment already claimed, every female already paired, every position in the hierarchy already occupied. So they drifted. They moved to the center of the enclosure and formed what Calhoun described as listless pools of bodies. He would stand above the pen for hours watching them lie there doing nothing. They were not sick. They were not starving. They were perfectly healthy, perfectly fed animals who had simply run out of anything to do. When another mouse attacked one of them, the drifter would not fight back. He would absorb the attack, stand up, walk a few steps, and lie down again. The instinct to defend himself had gone somewhere he could not reach. But not every displaced male went quiet. A second group emerged at the same time, and they went in exactly the opposite direction. These mice moved through the enclosure faster than anyone else. They forced themselves into nests other males were actively defending. They ignored the courtship rituals that every other mouse still followed. They could not be deterred by aggression or by rejection or by the clear signals that their behavior was not welcome. They pushed into spaces that were not theirs and took what was not offered and moved on before any consequence could catch them. And in the worst sections of the colony, behaviors appeared that Calhoun had never documented in any functioning mouse society before. The females responded with their own form of withdrawal. The ones who could not find a stable position in the social structure climbed to the highest apartments and stayed there. They stopped coming down. They stopped interacting with males entirely. They stopped reproducing. They lived alone at the top of the enclosure and wanted nothing from anyone below them. Calhoun also began documenting something he called the behavioral sink. Food was equally available at every feeder throughout the entire enclosure. There was no shortage anywhere. There was no rational reason to crowd. But the mice began compulsively gathering around a small number of specific feeders regardless. They would not eat alone. They would not eat at an empty feeder, even when that feeder was completely full. The presence of other bodies had become so deeply wired into their eating behavior that the act of feeding alone had stopped making sense to them. So they crowded into a handful of locations while the rest of the food supply sat untouched. The crowding got worse, the stress got worse, and the behavior got worse along with it. Then the mothers began to break. The females who were still trying to raise young had to defend their nests constantly. The males who had originally established territory had grown exhausted from endless patrolling and stopped protecting their families. So the mothers were defending alone, nursing alone, managing everything alone in an enclosure that had become increasingly chaotic around them. They started abandoning pups in random locations around the enclosure. Some mothers stopped recognizing which pups belonged to them. Others stopped caring. And in the worst sections of the colony, mothers began killing and eating their own offspring. In some parts of Universe 25, fewer than 1 in 20 newborn mice survived long enough to be weaned. Calhoun wrote later that by this point, the social fabric of the colony was effectively gone. The bodies were still moving. The structure that had held them together as a functioning species had already collapsed. The pups that did survive grew up watching none of this work. They had no model of what a healthy life inside this place looked like, because no healthy life existed inside this place anymore. They were raised by mothers who were barely holding together, in a colony where every social role had already been claimed or abandoned, in a world that had nothing left to offer them. And when they grew up, they became something Calhoun had never seen before. The males of this generation did not fight. They did not court females. They did not compete for territory or status or anything else. They did not engage in any social behavior of any kind. They ate, they slept, and they groomed themselves, obsessively, endlessly, with total focus. Their fur was always perfect, their coats immaculate. They had never been in a single fight, so their bodies showed no damage at all. They moved through the colony as though no other mouse existed in it. Calhoun named them the beautiful ones. They were, by every external measure, the healthiest-looking animals in the entire enclosure. They were also, by every functional measure, already gone. They never attempted to reproduce. They could not form social bonds. Their nervous systems had developed in a world where every role was taken and every position was filled, and there was simply nothing left that needed doing. So they had opted out. Not dramatically. Not violently. They had just quietly and completely stopped participating in the species. On day 560, the population of Universe 25 reached its peak. 2,200 mice. It would never go higher. The last successful conception in the entire enclosure happened on day 920. After that date, no new mice were born anywhere inside Universe 25. The colony had stopped renewing itself. The beautiful ones kept grooming. The isolated females stayed in their high apartments. Violence continued in small pockets with no purpose attached to it anymore. And one by one, the mice aged and died with nothing coming up behind them to take their place. On the 23rd of May 1973, the last mouse in Universe 25 died. 4 years and 10 months after Calhoun had placed 8 founders inside and shut the lid, he wrote that the mice had experienced 2 separate deaths. The first was the death of the spirit. The second was the death of the body. The first one had happened years before the second. When the paper was published, the world took the obvious lesson and ran with it. Comfort kills. Abundance destroys. A life without struggle is a life that collapses in on itself. The image of the beautiful ones, perfect in appearance, extinct in function, became one of the most widely cited metaphors of the late 20th century. Politicians used it. Religious leaders used it. Urban planners used it. Anyone who needed a warning about modern civilization found exactly what they were looking for in those mice. But that reading missed what Calhoun actually wrote. His real conclusion was sitting in the paper the whole time in his own words. For a creature as complex as a human being, he argued, a similar collapse was not just possible. It was logical. If the number of individuals who need meaningful roles to function greatly exceeds the number of meaningful roles actually available, the result is not just unhappiness. The result is the behavioral collapse he had watched happen 25 times. The killer was not comfort. The killer was the disappearance of meaningful roles. When the population grew faster than the colony could generate new purposes, the mice with nowhere to fit stopped functioning. The fighters had nothing worth fighting for. The mothers were defending nests that nobody helped them keep. The young grew up in a world that had nothing waiting for them to inherit. The invisible structure that gave each individual mouse a reason to show up and participate in the life of the species simply evaporated. The food never ran out. The water never ran out. What ran out was something nobody had thought to include in the paradise when they built it. Comfort did not kill them. Comfort just removed the friction that had always made being alive feel like it meant something. And here is the part that almost nobody ever quotes. Calhoun himself was not a pessimist. He did not publish this data and walk away believing collapse was inevitable. He spent the rest of his career not predicting the end, but actively trying to prevent it. He kept building new versions of the experiment. He kept adjusting variables. He was looking, with genuine hope, for the one thing he could reintroduce into a paradise that would allow it to keep functioning. He believed it was possible. He believed that human beings, unlike mice, could see the pattern coming and choose something different. He wrote that as physical space fills up and traditional roles disappear, the only direction left to expand is inward, into ideas, into creativity, into the construction of new roles and new purposes that did not exist before. He called this ideational generativity, a complicated phrase for something simple. The way forward is to keep inventing new reasons to be here. But the data is still sitting there, a perfectly designed paradise, 8 mice, 5 years, complete extinction, and a cause of death that no medical examination would ever be able to name. The mice had no way to see it coming. They had no framework for understanding what was happening to them or why. They could not read the pattern they were trapped inside. They just drifted and groomed and aged and disappeared. We have the data now. We have the paper. We have the pattern. We have 25 experiments worth of evidence about what happens when meaning disappears from a life that has everything else. The mice did not get a choice. The question Calhoun left behind, the one he spent the rest of his life trying to answer, is whether we will use ours.